Thank you all for being here and on time today. What I would like to do now is go ahead and move forward and welcome you to the Community Collective Impact Model for Change initiative. As we all know, we are delighted to have our funders on the call with us. So we'll make Molly and Valerie, if you could unmute your phones and go ahead and welcome and orient folks to the project.
Thanks, Holly. Can everyone hear me okay? I hope so. This is Molly Stone. I'm the Chief of the Bureau of Prevention, and we are very excited to be embarking on this journey with all of you to work through the collective impact process, as well as focus on some community trauma efforts. When we were first heard about the CARES dollars, our team really started talking about what were the things that we could do that would most impact the state. The prevention dollars weren't as much as the treatment dollars, and goodness knows we need that treatment out there in the communities. But we have to look ahead too and try to prevent this from getting worse and moving forward, happening more and more. So one of the things that we really have talked about in our office is, we have a lot of coalitions, we have a lot of opiate task forces, we have groups popping up every day, it seems, because there's people that want to help to stop this epidemic. So what this effort will allow us to do, and allow you to do, is look at those folks in your community that are doing the good work, so to speak, and bring everyone together with a common agenda to maybe make more of an impact, and along the way deal with this trauma that has decimated so many of our communities across the state. I'm very fortunate to work with a wonderful team at the department, which many of you know. For this project, we will be working with Valerie. Valerie is the lead with OU and the Prevention Institute for this project. But you also will be working with Kathy Yoakum and Corrine Carlson, who you probably have already had some correspondence with, to get your information into GFMS, because we really need to get all of that into the system so that we can make sure that we get those grants approved so that you all can get your funding to get paid, obviously. I think that's about it for me. Looking very forward to working with all of you. I've known many of you for several years, so this is just one more thing we get to work on together. So I'm very excited. Valerie, did you want to throw anything in?
I just want to echo what Molly said. We're really excited about this project and the potential that it does have, and really looking not only our traditional partners, but partners that maybe never crossed our mind, and what kind of impact bringing different folks to the table can really have, especially when we start looking at community trauma and ways to address that so we can really help those communities thrive, because we can get back to that place despite the challenges we're facing right now. So thank you all for applying for the funding, and yeah, we're really excited to get moving forward.
You, Holly.
Thank you. We appreciate your introduction and your orientation. I see that we have someone typing in the chat box, so I'm going to wait and see if there's any questions for Valerie and Molly before we get started. If you have questions, go ahead and type them in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask. It sounds like there are no questions, so we will go ahead and move forward. The way that Ohio MOS has envisioned this project is to work through a learning community model where we will all become a community of learners together. And today is our first opportunity to come together as a community of learners to learn about what we are doing, what our goals are, and how we are going to get there. You met and heard about our team from Ohio MOS. I represent the Collective Impact Training, Technical Assistance, and Evaluation team. We also have, as Valerie mentioned, a team from Prevention Institute, and then you yourself as project grantees are also part of our learning community. So on the next slide, I would like to just share a brief picture. I know in 1 minute introduction that I had on our video was we knew it was impossible for you to see the many talented individuals that we have put together on our team, but here are some pictures so you can put some faces with names, and these are individuals who you will be hearing from either for training or technical assistance or in our coaching model. Of course, our team is fluid, and so we will add members as we need to best meet your needs as the project unfolds. So that is your Collective Impact Training, Technical Assistance, and Evaluation team, and those are members and research scientists from Ohio University and the Pacific Institute for Research and Evaluation, or PIRE. Next, I would like to hand it over to our Prevention Institute team, and they can provide a brief introduction. So if you could unmute yourself, please go ahead, Sheila, Dana, and Ruben.
Hello, this is Sheila Savannah. I'm so glad to be joining this webinar and also to be working with this project. For 20 years, Prevention Institute has really been working across the country to look at the ways that primary prevention can be advanced, and especially how it can be customized for different communities so it works particularly for them. As one of the directors of Prevention Institute, I come with a lot of experience in building systems of care, both in mental health as well as in substance abuse. And I'm joined by Dana Fields Johnson, who has a wealth of experience in really working on those comprehensive plans and helping groups that we work with really look at all the assets in their community and how do you bring those to the table and make it so that it really works for them. She also has a public health background, which gives her a lot of experience in how do you operationalize things so that it sticks and so you can measure impact. We're also joined by Ruben Cantu, who is another program manager at Prevention Institute, and he manages our mental health sites, 16 sites across the country that are looking at how to prevent and mental illness and also build mental well-being among boys and men and veteran populations. Ruben's expertise is really tremendous in terms of how do you build that policy infrastructure, especially to address community trauma. And so we are excited to be joining this collaborative and look forward to the work that you're doing in Ohio. We know it's so very much needed and are excited to be building with you some tremendous solutions. So thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. We'll move right along and allow the grantee communities to discuss a little bit about one another. And before we move forward, I'm going to ask one of our team members, Bob Gordon, and he's going to show you some of the maps that we've created and also the map that we are creating with you as we move forward as we get some data. So we'll go ahead and pull up that piece. So we'll just give us a minute to change our screen. There we go.
Just briefly, I want to show you this interactive map that you see before you on the screen. You have a link to it on the agenda, so each of you will be able to access that. And I'm going to go through this fairly quickly, but allow you the opportunity to look at it within your own agencies. Of course, you see the state of Ohio, and then you see the various counties represented that the project is working with. And to the side, you'll see the legend here where you can turn off either the lead agency or the project county. In addition, on the icon here for additional layers, you can, that's my mouse there for a minute, there we go. You can also come in here and add the layer for the county tiers, 1, 2, and 3 that is assigned to the particular projects. Then you can take a look at the opiate prescription rates in these particular areas. And if you mouse over a particular county, right-click on that. There we go. Oh, sorry, it's not a right-click. It's a left-click on the mouse. Sorry. Then this information comes up about that particular location, and you can see the numbers there. Same thing is available. Same thing is available for the comparison of the 15, 16, and then the 16 prescription rate and the 15 prescription rate per 100 residents. And additionally, you can zoom in on a particular county, and that particular county will have details and the location of the sites on there as a reference map. Several of our participants on the team are across the country, so this is very helpful to them to know where you are and to be able to communicate with you about where you're at in a particular state. So there's several pieces there. Also want to mention to you about a static map that we're producing, and we'll bring that up. And when I say static map, I mean these are actual maps that you can actually print out at your desktop and be able to use inside reports, etc. We currently have a couple of versions of those that we're working with, and we're refining those constantly as we have communication with the particular communities. Today's conversation, I'm sure, will inform about even more ideas we might have for this kind of work. And that map will be up in just a moment. You have it in your, there you go. It is in your slide handout there. This particular map, the one you're looking at, shows the lead agency locations by county. We're going to overlay that with the tiers as well. That will be the next iteration of this particular map. And you should have that shortly, and that will be coming out to the different communities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We're currently working with Ohio MOS, and they are reaching out to their partners, the Ohio Department of Health, to get additional data. We've only been funded to work on this project for about 3 weeks now, so we're trying to build and catch up as well. We also welcome any ideas you have for data that you would like to see added to that interactive map that will help you and your community as you move forward, looking at your collective impact models, because we do know that they are definitely based on data. So right now I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions about either the interactive map or the static maps that are being produced. If you have questions, please put them in the chat box, or you can unmute your phone. Looks like we don't have any questions, so we'll go ahead and work on moving forward. You had the opportunity to get to know one another through the activity where we all created videos. And so I do have some questions, and these questions should look very familiar to you because they were emailed out to you ahead of time. And so I'd like you to answer the first question. What is one new fun fact that you learned about one of your fellow grantees? And you can either write that fun fact in the chat box, or you can unmute your phone, introduce yourself, and let us know what that fun fact is. So after watching the videos, what is one new fun fact that you learned about one of your fellow grantees? See, Kylie Jones said she learned that Fairfield County has the last county fair in the state. So it is definitely the last one. Others, what did you learn about your fellow grantees? See, we have a lot of people typing, so thank you for participating in our learning community.
This is Molly. I'll just unmute myself and talk, but I thought it was very interesting when I watched the videos how many of our counties were part of the Underground Railroad. I found that interesting.
And interesting enough, Molly Stevens just typed in that same comment. So the Mollys were thinking about the other counties that were part of the Underground Railroad. Judy Wood learned about the Y Bridge. And Tony Ashton also acknowledged that many of the counties have underground tunnels from the Underground Railroad. Miriam said Muskingum has the most fast food restaurants in a 1 mile radius. That's what she learned. Dana also acknowledged that the Underground Railroad was something that she thought of when she watched the videos. See, people are typing in. Feel free to unmute yourself and just chime in. We'd love to hear from you. Adrian says that the student that designed the flag got a B-, and that was Tony Ashton who shared that story from Fairfield County. I thought that was interesting as well. Dana has added, one of the counties shared they have a popcorn festival. She wants an invite to attend. I believe that was Marion County. Was that the one with the popcorn festival? See Jody typing. She says it is, and you really don't want an invitation, LOL. See, Tommy and Tony are typing. Tommy noted that Clark County mentioned that 4-H was founded there. And Tony has a follow-up. The teacher changed his grade to an A when the flag design was adopted. Well, I'd imagine so. You wouldn't want to be wrong there. See, Judy is typing. Says, thanks for that great update on the flag. Of course, of course. As you watched the video, you were asked to consider, what was the contributing factor that you heard from a fellow grantee that resonated with you as a factor that may be at work in your own community, but you didn't mention in your video? So what was one of those ideas that you got from one of your fellow learning community members? And again, you can open your phone and just let us know, or you can type in. Molly added rural Appalachian poor as being a factor, so that notion of place and socioeconomic status. Tommy, unresolved childhood trauma. Jody Galloway, generational addiction. Kylie, one of the counties up north had a major highway that connected to major cities, and Muskingum County has that problem as well, so some shared insight there. Judy adds the need for prevention as well as generational addiction. I really like how we're starting to learn from one another even at a distance in a virtual capacity, and I think we've shown how we can learn from one another in two formats. through the video presentations as well as deep reflection about those videos, and then moving into having some conversation, whether it's chat box or phone over a virtual webinar. The next question I'd like you all to think of is, in the pre-work instructions, project directors were asked to share how they determined which factors contributing to the opioid epidemic were at work in their community. What data and information sources did your fellow grantees mention to support those contributing factors they listed? What data did you hear? The CHIP, the Community Health Improvement Process. Thank you, Adrian, for sharing. The CHAW, the Community Health Assessment. Thank you, Kylie. The high-intensity drug trafficking areas. This is like alphabet soup, right? This is a test as the moderator, if I know what all of these are. So thank you, there's data there. Epicenter data from Kylie. Thank you. And ORS, Ohio's Automated Prescription Drug Reporting System. That's a tricky one. And we hear ORS again from Jody. Because collective impact is based upon data, and we're looking at collective impact through the lens of the strategic prevention framework, we know that data is really important in assessing needs, but also evaluating outcomes. So it's really an important thing to consider when we talk about those influencing factors is what data do we have to support so we know that interventions that we choose are actually making a difference, right? And also that we are going by not just kind of gut feeling or community reaction, but we do have some data to guide our decision-making process as we move forward. So that data is very important. The next question that we have are, what are some of the suggestions for community improvement that grantees had in common? So all the project directors were asked to identify one thing that they thought would be helpful. What did you hear or see in the videos that folks had in common? Helping communities get on the same page with a common agenda. Thank you. Kylie Jones, trying to get all community groups work together. Adrian, collaboration with coalitions and organizations. Working across systems and silos. Thank you, Tommy. Miriam, community education as well. Definitely those are common areas, and because all of you identified very similar, the same common areas, we know that this grants the perfect opportunity for all of you. We have a lot of activity going on related to the opioid epidemic, but how do we harness that power and how do we come together strategically as a group to move forward? That seems to definitely be something that's on everyone's mind. So following up with that, what was a unique suggestion for community improvement that you heard? What's something that really made you think, oh, that's different as you were watching the videos? Enter in the chat box. There's no right or wrong answer, or you can pick up the phone and just chat. Looks like this is a stumper question. And this task is actually one that we're not used to. A lot of times what we do is we look for commonalities and we tend to try and process those, particularly those of you who are in your roles, as servant leaders, as many of you are, because I know that I've worked from you in the community, it's also important to look towards some of those unique ideas, unique suggestions, and make sure we're hearing everything and filtering it. So I think that's a good way. Oh, Judy just chimed in and said she liked the mention of SBIRT. Thank you, Judy. And so when those of us who work in the public sector we're always looking for the greatest good for the greatest number, or what's going to be good for the common. And sometimes those unique ideas or those diamonds in the rough are things that we file away and don't really pay attention to. So let's make a concerted effort moving forward to look for not only commonalities, but also let's look for those differences or those unique ideas, because you never know when those kernels may come to fruition. I see Judy is typing. She also liked the idea of re-energizing. Yeah, so that concept of we've had something, but now we need to sort of reboot. So maybe we don't have to start from whole cloth here, but maybe we can reboot what we had. Thank you. Finally, our last question that you were asked to sort of explore while you watched our videos today are, what are some common hopes and dreams for this learning community that you heard? What do you hope people will get out? What do people hope they will get out of this experience and this funding experience moving forward? I see a lot of people are typing. Thank you for your engagement. You always have the option to unmute yourself if you prefer to do that. Rhonda from Fairfield County, increased effectiveness in serving the community. So looking for those effective ways. Kylie, community coalition building, bringing groups together and utilizing strengths, that strength-based approach. Miriam, an organized method to deliver a unified message. So looking for that unification. Judy, decreasing the trauma and saving lives through the collaboration. So adding in those outcomes there as well. So we've seen some process measures as well as outcome measures. And I hear some typing, so. Truly cross-system collaboration, letting all partners win. Thank you. I think that's what I heard as well, and when I watched the videos, is that there's as much investment from this group of grantees in learning the process as there is in getting the outcome. And as we know, that good processes can lead to great outcomes, and that's what we hope to provide you, the training, technical assistance, coaching, and support to help get your communities to the outcomes that they want, which ultimately then will help for a healthy Ohio. The final question here that we have today is, how can you contribute to the growth of your fellow grantees? Because this is a learning community. So if you could type in or unmute yourself and just say a little bit about what you or your community, if you feel more comfortable, has to add to this learning community as we move forward. Adrian, communicate, share what is working. Thank you. Sharing barriers and successes. Yes, it's very important to look at both. Dana, sharing our knowledge and learnings from other communities about effective strategies for addressing community trauma. Thank you. Tony, connections and relationships. Right? We are all in this together. Jennifer, keeping an open mind to a new and or alternative methods. Excellent characteristic of a learning community. Cultural competence on our local populations. Keeping that cultural competence and relevance at the heart of what we do. Miriam, we have a newly formed leadership team that has some successes we could share and questions we have to improve our process. Yes. And Ashley also talking about sharing those ideas and continue networking to build relationships. Knowing we're not alone. Sometimes that's really important to know that your community is unique in its own right, but also experiencing similarities to other communities and how those ideas can spread or how we can learn from one another. Rhonda, the Fairfield Opiate County Task Force began in November 2009 and continues to evolve. So there's really never an ending. There's more of an evolution. Thank you, Rhonda. There is hope. Thanks, Judy. It sounds like a great space to end this conversation. And I really appreciate you all taking time, one, to craft your videos. I know we all have busy schedules, but that gives us an idea of who's in the room and who we're going to be working with. And also really engaging in this webinar deeply as a learning community. And I look forward to you all meeting together face-to-face and continuing to grow. And at this point, I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, Carrie Burgraff, and she's going to discuss a little bit more about those logistics of the learning community. Carrie, if you could unmute yourself.
Hi, everyone. So great to be on here with you. And thank you, Holly, for leading that wonderful discussion. I feel like I really learned a lot from all of your answers, and I got a better sense of your communities and what you're hoping to get out of this project. So now that we've met each other and we went through our discussion, let's talk a little bit about what a learning community is exactly and how we're going to learn from one another. And then I'll finish with a little bit of logistics for our upcoming meetings. So as you can see on your screen, a learning community is a group of people who have a common passion and seek to improve their practice and further their shared understanding through regular interaction. I think you guys all hit on this in your answers, but and since we've worked with so many of you before, I'm sure that you've all been part of a learning community in the past. However, I feel like this definition is particularly fitting for this particular project because we're using the collective impact approach, which is all about pursuing a shared agenda, constantly communicating, and trying to reach that common goal. So in terms of how we're going to learn from one another during this process, first, we're going to be doing some webinars like this one. They'll be scattered throughout. And we'll also have some in-person meetings as well. Our first one will be next month, November 1st, and I'll touch on that a little bit. In between the webinars and the meetings, we're also going to have homework assignments to complete. And these are intended to reinforce the concepts that you've learned and help apply those to your own communities. During these assignments and in between our meetings, we'll be offering training and technical assistance. We want to make sure that you feel supported during those times as well, not just during our in-person meetings and on our webinars. But I think the most important thing to remember about a learning community is the active participation and discussion aspect. And when everybody discusses their ideas and their experiences, that's the key to making these learning communities successful. Learning from one another, discussing our successes and failures, as someone mentioned earlier, will only serve to strengthen the work that we are all trying to do. And these learning opportunities will help foster communication and encourage sharing with your peers. Remember that knowledge is power, but relationships still matter. And we hope that these relationships formed in this particular learning community will continue long after this project as well. And you'll continue to support one another in the future and in all of your future endeavors. So now that we kind of know what a learning community is and how it works, I'm going to move on to the most fun part of any presentation, which is logistics. And our first opportunity to meet face-to-face will be November 1st, and that will be in Dublin, Ohio, at the Dublin Integrated Education Center. It's going to be from 9:30 to 3, and lunch will be provided. I'm going to be sending out an invitation via Eventbrite, so watch out for that email, and make sure that you RSVP using that invite, just so we can get a proper head count, and that I can make sure to order lunch, the proper amount of lunch, and ensure if there are any dietary restrictions that those are met. And then our next learning opportunity after that will be Wednesday, December 6th, and that'll be another webinar from 1 to 2:30, so at the same time as today. And more on these events in the future. We'll be sending out additional communications, but just make sure to mark them on your calendars and kind of save that date so that you're ready to participate. So now I'm going to turn it over to April. She's going to get more into the meat of this project and probably discuss the most exciting and important part of this webinar, which is the overall project framework.
And before April, you log in, we did have a question from Judy Wood, and she says, is there a limit to the number of participants that can attend the November 1st meeting? And then the question 1 to 3. And that's a great question, Judy. And we'll send out directions with that invitation, but, oh, pardon me. You should definitely plan on having at least one other person other than the project director, but probably no more than 3. So I think that 2 to 3 is good, but we definitely would like to have at least 2 people from each community who know about the project and are able to step in. We know that life happens. We also know that people get scheduled, so we want to make sure that we have that continuity. So great question, Judy. Thank you. Before we move forward, what other questions does the group have regarding logistics, or questions for Carrie about what it means to be in a learning community? You can type those questions in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask over the phone. I see we have a few typing, so we'll just hold off, April, if that's okay. We still see some indication on our end that folks are typing, so we want to make sure we give them time because we want people to get their questions answered.
Yeah, we're a little ahead of schedule anyway, so it's a good time to pause.
Let's see, we have a question from Rhonda. As we move through this process, we need to ensure participating stakeholders are okay with proposed changes. Is the process flexible to accommodate these interests? I guess I will just pose this question back to the group. So what would you think? We know that we have leadership for this, and we have folks who are leaders, but we also know that not everyone can come to every learning opportunity because we want to make sure that we develop you all as leaders in your community. So what would all of you say? Should this process be flexible to accommodate interests as the project moves forward and as we all move forward in our learning? There's no right or wrong answer here. Give Rhonda some feedback. You can type it in the chat box or you can unmute yourself. So think about strategic planning efforts that you've done in your own community. Do you allow for flexibility in that strategic planning process as it evolves over time? See, folks are typing in, so we appreciate your input. I see Miriam saying, in the 6 months we've been working more closely together, we've been very flexible in meeting the needs of all stakeholders and reaching common ground so we can move projects forward. Flexibility is the key in this process for us. Miriam, thank you for sharing your community's experience. Adrian says, I think we need to be flexible and open to the ideas of our stakeholders. Any other feedback? Elaine is typing. Elaine, we can be flexible as long as our stakeholders agree on some common focus. And the goal of our training and technical assistance, as well as our learning community, is to develop you all as leaders in the collective impact process. And as that, you will develop the tools to learn how to involve stakeholders, as well as work with your stakeholders to create that common agenda and learn how to stick to that common agenda while having that flexibility for emergent issues or for other ideas and give space at the same time. We definitely won't provide experiences where we require you as project directors to make decisions. Everything that we ask you to do when we're together meeting as a learning community is more strategies and ways to move your own community forward, things to do to take back to your community. We would never ask you to commit to something, without asking your community for feedback. So Rhonda, it seemed like that helped for you. So she thanks definitely her learning community members for that feedback. I appreciate all of you for chiming in with your thoughts and ideas. It definitely advances the work to hear how things are happening in the field. I'd like to hand it over to Dr. April Schreienhardt. April, would you like to lead us through our next section here, which is the overall framework for this project?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Holly. So like a few of you, I am relatively new to OSET, but like all of you, I understand that opioid use and abuse is a very serious problem. We know that it's a problem in Ohio. This comes from a couple of different sources showing opioid-related deaths over the last couple of years. We know that they're up since 2015, and it looks like that trend is going to continue in 2017. And so it's a really complex problem as well, as all of you mentioned in your videos, and as we saw on the map that Robert presented too. So it's clearly a complex, serious issue that we're all here to deal with together. So rather than focusing on the negative side of this, what can we talk about? What tools do we have available to address this epidemic? Let's focus on it as a solution. So we're here to talk about the collective impact framework, how you all can serve as a backbone organization through communication, mutually reinforcing activities, common progress measures, and a common agenda, which we all mentioned already, which is great. And then I think all of us are familiar with the SPIF process of evaluation, assessment, capacity planning, and implementation. If you're not familiar with the SPIF process, please go ahead and type your email and name or organization in the chat box so that we can send you some information, on the background of SPIF to kind of catch you up to speed on that. And now we're just going to be adding some new tools from our excellent partners at PI as we work together as a collective team through the ACER and Thrive tools that they bring to the table, which we're really excited about to be bringing into our SPIF framework to address this epidemic that we have going on. So as I said, we're going to be working under this collective impact model. I don't see anyone typing, so hopefully that means everyone was familiar with this SPIF. But please do remember to type your name in if you need that background information. So the collective impact model is going to be our framework. It's a vehicle that we're going to be using. It's our structured approach. But we need to use the SPIF model to provide our evidence base. And then the ACER and Thrive tools bring that community piece into the puzzle. So that also brings about the common agenda, again, like we've all been talking about. Because no single policy, government department, organization, or program, just like it says, can tackle or solve such a complex issue like the opioid epidemic alone. So we need to bring everything that all of us bring to the table, like we've already been talking about just in the hour or so that we've been on the phone together. Everything that we have experienced together, we've already started learning from each other, which is excellent. And that's the point of the collective impact model, is that we can bring these things together. So this is how we can kind of work collectively. But we want to address the entire continuum of care, because this is something else that we heard in your videos. All of you were talking about how we want to work from every aspect of prevention, early intervention, treatment, all the way to recovery in order to prevent and decrease the use and misuse of overdose and overdose-related deaths related to opioid use throughout the entire continuum of care. So how do we really work collectively to do that and bring all of these different frameworks together using the collective impact model? That's what we really want to talk about today. So it definitely starts with the SPIF. The SPIF is at the center and at the core, because again, we're all familiar with that. I'm just going to pause again in case you didn't get the chance, or you can certainly let me know or let Holly know if you're not comfortable typing your name in today. If you would like a little more information on this SPIF, that's fine. Let us know and we can send you those materials. So the SPIF is at the core because that's what provides us our evidence base for tackling this problem. And then the collective impact model provides us the backbone because sorry, I heard someone on the line. It provides us with a common agenda that we've already been talking about. We know we want to tackle opioid use. And then our strong stem, our backbone of our organization. And then surrounding our strong evidence base is also our common measures that we're going to use throughout evaluation and assessment, as well as continuous communication and mutually reinforcing activities that just kind of strengthen, as you can probably see where we're going with this metaphor, the flower of or plant of what we're trying to do here. And then we also have the constants that are always going to be in this outline, this framework of sustainability and cultural competency. That's kind of the dirt. It's essential to what we're doing. To sustain our organization, we need our cultural competency as well. It's at the root of our common agenda. And then we're bringing in, again, these new tools of Thrive and ACER. What we didn't know is that they were really essential all along to the growth of our plant or our flower. They come in through the roots and through the soil, the water and the fertilizer of our plant to help strengthen it, and they come up through that common agenda to enhance the petals of our spiff plant through enhancing community and decreasing trauma and increasing resilience. But I will let the Prevention Institute talk more about that because they are the experts in that area.
Thank you very much.
Any questions on this? Oh, sorry. Yeah, Holly.
Oh, no, I was just going to thank you very much for providing us this metaphor. And I just wanted to open it up to the floor to see if there are any questions about how we were taking these 4 frameworks and putting them together to support our communities in addressing the opioid epidemic. You see some people typing, so if you haven't already, please put your phone on mute. We're picking up a little bit of background noise, so if you're not talking, that would be useful. Judy has a comment. I like the metaphor. Will this be available to us as slides? Definitely, we can do that. We are still exploring this metaphor ourselves, and we hope to have it professionally designed. This was sort of our best effort that we could do as preliminary, and we're hoping that the slide will grow as we grow together as a project. But if you we can send it out for sure as a preliminary effort, and it may be helpful for you as you recruit people to come on to your collective impact coalition or whatever you're terming your body of work. Other feedback or questions? As we know, Ohio is well steeped in the Strategic Prevention Framework, or SPIF. We've been well steeped in that since about 2008 officially, although it happened before that as it was coming down from SAMHSA. Collective impact is something that we've also been exploring here through our tracks at OPEC for the past 3 years, and so that's exciting, and we've learned a lot about that. Beginning this year at OPEC, we brought in Sheila Savannah from the Prevention Institute, who was a keynote, who talked about the Thrive and ACER model and this notion of community trauma. And right away, we noticed that that is something that we need to help our process and to help move us forward. So without further ado, I would like to turn over the webinar to our team at Prevention Institute to give us a brief overview of addressing and preventing community trauma.
Thank you so much, April and Holly. I think that was a great kind of overview and start to how our tools and frameworks support the SPIF process and the framework that Ohio has been working in for several years now. This is Dana, and as Sheila said earlier in the call, we are really excited to be a part of this learning community, not just sharing our tools and frameworks, but also learning from your unique experiences in your communities as we move forward together in this very critical work. I'll start our overview of our approach and hand off to Ruben in a few slides. We'll share more about our emphasis in particular on community level trauma. To start, let's ground ourselves in a shared understanding of what we mean when we say prevention. And
Dana, you should be able to move your own slides, but if you can't, just let us know. We made you a presenter, so.
And that's, we were trying to figure out.
At the bottom?
I think I figured it out. I think I got it. Thank you, Holly. That was a question we meant to ask you about. So yeah, again, starting ourselves and just rooting in a shared understanding of what we mean at Prevention Institute when we say primary prevention. Our formal definition is really primary prevention is a systematic process that reduces the frequency or severity of illness or injury. And the way we simply put it is, it means asking ourselves what can be done to prevent the problem, and in this case, opioid use and abuse in the first place. And for us, there are three critical elements of effective prevention that you see here on the slide. The first being looking at the community environment and identifying opportunities to strengthen and improve it to support prevention, health, safety, and equity. And the other elements are comprehensive primary prevention elements. The second being working across sectors and silos with community at multiple levels. So, you know, we really emphasize this, and so we love your comments about the flexibility to be able to go back to community and be a part of defining what needs to happen and defining those solutions, because that's key to effective primary prevention. So working with community at multiple levels to build on assets and strengths to identify solutions. And lastly, effective prevention requires us to look at the norms influencing unhealthy choices and behaviors and working to change those norms to support healthy behavior. So the next slide, we really love this quote from the Institute of Medicine and believe it's such a powerful quote that reemphasizes and supports the need for a focus on community environment to achieve large-scale population impact. When we talk about the environment at Prevention Institute, you know, we really encourage an inspection and analysis of the environment in three facets. The socio-cultural environment, meaning the people and how they connect and relate to one another. The traditional way of talking about, yes? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought I heard something. The traditional way of talking about environment, which is the physical or built environment, looking at what's around us, what's available to us, and how it contributes to illness, injury, health, and safety. And then thirdly, what we call the opportunity environment, another way that we look at how the environment fosters or obstructs equitable opportunity for communities. So one of the ways that, and one of the tools we use that's been effective in helping communities look at community determinants of health is Prevention Institute's THRIVE tool, which stands for Tool for Health and Resilience in Vulnerable Environments. And THRIVE is simply a framework to look at 12 community factors. So in those three interrelated clusters that you see there, people, place, and equitable opportunity. It provides a way to help you look at the community environment, talk about concerns in a way that reduces stigma and labeling of the community, and identify strengths and assets that can be leveraged for solutions. So now I'm going to turn it over to Ruben, who will share a little more about our approach.
Great, thanks, Dana. So this is Ruben Grantee with Prevention Institute. I'm going to talk a little bit about our adverse community experiences and resilience framework, or ACER, as we call it for short. And really, this is simply put, this is an application of the THRIVE framework, which was developed in partnership with the Federal Department of Health and Human Services. And it's a way of looking at the way people are experiencing trauma at the community level. So I think all of us are familiar with what trauma is and how it relates to the impact it has on people. You know, I think most of us are familiar with adverse community experiences, adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs. And this is a way of looking at that, but at a broader population community level. And so we lay out here a few of the findings that we came to in talking to folks that are implementing violence prevention or other health promoting strategies in their communities. And as we were working with folks across the country on these kinds of strategies, we heard from them that trauma was a barrier to putting in place these strategies to improve the health and safety in their communities. So in talking to them, we kind of came to this understanding that a lot of people know what trauma is. A lot of people know how people are approaching dealing with trauma at the individual level through screening and treatment and through healthcare and mental health services. But the other thing that came through in the conversations we had with folks is that trauma is also manifesting at a community level. It's something that we're seeing across entire communities as a result of the impact of chronic adversity. And by here, we're talking about things like chronic poverty, other forms of discrimination and oppression. And also in talking to folks, we were hearing from them that there are emerging practices at the community level to address and prevent this community level manifestation of trauma. And so we lay out here what we've identified as some of the symptoms of community trauma and how they manifest across the people, the places, and the opportunity environments that Dana just talked about. That include some of the things that we heard about in the videos that you all shared. Things like intergenerational poverty, the disconnection of social relationships and connections, the breakdown of generational and family relationships, and even some of the things that we've seen, like how housing that's been abandoned or dilapidated, how that can impact people in the community. I know if you walk out in your community and you see abandoned, boarded up buildings, you know, that has an impact on you and your mental health and well-being. And so really, all of these symptoms of trauma, what they contribute to is a feeling of hopelessness in a community, which then leads us to impacts our behaviors and our ability to be healthy. And really the way that we need to address these kinds of broader community and systemic issues is by building up resilience in our communities. And what we mean by resilience is the ability of a community to recover from and thrive despite the prevalence of adverse conditions. It's really the ability of a community to not only bounce back from something that is harming them, but to be able to push against it and try to make changes to better the community and to improve our ability to be healthy and resilient. And all of this work requires simultaneous community solutions. We need to look at both the individual approaches to address the issues that are facing people, and that's things like trauma-informed care and mental health services and things we're familiar with. But we also need to put in place some community strategies to be able to reduce community trauma and to reduce the risk of violence, the threat of violence, you know, the threat of all of the other things that might harm us in our communities. And that's things like building up workforce development strategies so that people have quality employment and income, working on things like living wage, or working on things like, and I think particularly in the work that we're seeing and hearing about in Ohio, it's some of these strategies within what we call our people cluster. So rebuilding relationships, trying to strengthen the norms in the community so that they're health promoting, and rebuilding intergenerational relationships, which I think sometimes we find is a really key part of strengthening a community's ability to bounce back and bounce forward. Did somebody have a question?
Just a reminder, we're hearing some background noise, so if you have not muted your phone, please do so.
And so just to kind of wrap up this part of the presentation, we really need to have a strong focus on the strengths and assets of our community to get us to the point where we're building resilience. Even in the midst of adversity, we see positives emerge. And I think we can all share stories of how there are positives in our communities. Like the elder family member or the neighbor that steps in to help when a parent is unable to do what they need to do, or the front yard that the neighborhood kids know is a place that they can get together to play after school. And those are the starting points for building thriving and resilient communities. And we really see the ACER framework and the Thrive tool as the frameworks and processes that can help activate, like we saw earlier, that soil and strengthen the common agenda, the backbone organizations, the activities, so that they become the nutrients for those petals in the SPIF framework. So we are really looking forward to working with you all and helping you all, take a look at what it is around you that might be impacting, this epidemic in the state, and coming up with some strategies that might help to build that long-term resilience in the community as a whole. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions about any of that you can type into the chat box or? And this was a really quick overview of this. This is usually something that we can spend a lot more time on, and we look forward to spending a lot more time with you all to go through some of these concepts and how they might apply to and help support your work.
Thank you, Ruben and Dana. We'll give folks a few more minutes to process. I think we have a shared understanding that the purpose of today's webinar is to get us interested and excited into this body of work. So if you have questions or comments, please use the chat box or go ahead and unmute your line. We're very excited on the integration of the collective impact model, the Thrive model, and the ACER model in with the strategic prevention framework here. Oh, I see that we have a comment coming, so I'll pause before maybe not. Oh, we do have a comment. Thanks for the model, components, and perspectives from Judy Wood. Thank you, Judy, for sharing your thoughts. So as we are, we're highly innovative here in Ohio, and I've been working in Ohio in the prevention space since 2009. And when I go to federal meetings at SAMHSA, I always hear, wow, we always look to Ohio to hear what those next greatest things are going. And what we love is how your single state agency, or Ohio MOS in this case, pulls together people to co-create. And we're excited that you are part of this co-creation of what this intersection of these frameworks looks like. But what we all want to know is, what is our scope of work? What do we have to do for these dollars that we've been entrusted with? And I think that's really important, is that these are all public dollars. These are dollars that are yours and mine, and the people that you stand in line with at the grocery store, the people who you are with at church and in the community. And so how can we be good stewards with those dollars? So I'll turn it over now to Molly and Valerie to more fully discuss that scope of work moving forward.
Thanks, Holly. And thanks everybody else for your participation, and Prevention Institute for sharing. I don't have the most exciting piece of this, especially after following Ruben. But again, we know this is big ideas in a situation where we don't have the traditional amount of time that we're used to experiencing with funding opportunities, so that everybody feels comfortable. What Rhonda brought up earlier about the flexibility, this entire process is flexible and fluid, and we understand the challenges and barriers that may pop up, and it's okay if things don't go exactly as we expect them to, because that's how we learn and grow. So again, participating in everything that's being offered and really working hard to develop that common agenda, those shared measures, and starting to look across the continuum changing those lenses in the community a little bit to help develop a really grounded, localized map that everybody in your community can get behind and support and help reach those outcomes. The chances of implementation, between now and April may not be as realistic as we hoped, and that's okay as well. I think the biggest piece that we need is to have at least a completed plan in every community by April 30th. And we know that probably every single one of you already has something started. So we'll really be working through your experiences, what you have in place, and how do we bring in these other pieces and enhance and grow the work that you're already doing. And we'll be reporting on outcomes based on those shared measures. So yeah, that's the scope. If anybody has questions around any of those pieces, feel free to reach out now or any other time. Everybody within the Prevention Bureau is happy to help in any way we can.
I see we have some questions, Valerie, so if you keep on the line here. Sure. Oh, well, it's for Molly. Molly, what is the status of the NOSA for this project?
Thanks for asking Molly, Elaine.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I can tell you that, these funds are set up a little bit differently because they came to the department basically, like I said earlier, as treatment dollars with an opportunity to use some for prevention. So we were very fortunate to get about $5 million to put out towards prevention in our state. But the process for the grants, everybody submitted their grants. We're getting them in GFMS. Our project director for the CURES project is reviewing them. She's had a couple questions because not being as familiar with prevention as some of us are. So we've been trying to work through some of that and then getting fiscal to approve things. So it's just been a slower process than what we're used to. But I know, Elaine, after you, not to point you out, but since you asked, you did provide a good explanation for yours when we sent it up to the project director. And when I checked earlier, I hadn't heard back from her, but I will follow up with that on Monday. Our goal is to get them out as soon as possible. You all, I know, are starting work and wanting to do things. So please know that we're working as fast as we can.
Thank you, Elaine, for the question. Thank you, Molly, for providing clarification for a question that was probably on a lot of folks' minds. We appreciate that. What other questions do we have? Concerns? I see we have some typing, so we'll pause for a moment. I see a question from Judy Wood. What is the final product for the project and what is the exact timeline due?
I think the main final product will be the strategic plan map that we'll create as part of the learning community and through the TTA that you'll receive in between. And we would really want that to be completed by April 30th, which is the end of the funding period.
Miriam has a question. Is there anything we need to prepare any product for the November meeting? Miriam, that's a good question. From our end, of course, we have to evaluate the project. So we will have a quick survey for you to complete to come in and So there's really no stress there. It's almost like a pre-survey. And then our team meets every Monday from 2 to 3, and we are trying to take what we heard and what we need from this webinar and also your videos and build out the content for that. But I can assure you that the agendas will all be sent out as soon as we can. You'll notice you had several communications from our team about, what needed to be done for this quick webinar to get you all started. We hope to provide that all to you in real-time fashion for that. We don't anticipate there'll be any big products, but it may be just asking for you, maybe if you have a chip or a CHA, or if you have a needs assessment in your community, to bring that. So it'll be mostly like things to bring and gather up, or things to think about and consider. It won't be an official report or anything like that. Valerie, Molly, would you have anything to add from your end?
No, I think that's fine. I mean, I think that, because of the nature of this work, and I think it's going to be really, I know you're all probably thinking, well, we have a strategic plan, but I think looking at what the Prevention Institute can offer, as well as what Ohio University can offer, and all of you, I think that will be fabulous. I do want to mention one other thing. We do have 2 staff that are working with Cures, Julie Spohn and Christine, I want to say Zelensky, but I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing her name correctly. But you may hear from 2 of them, because there might be, they may have some questions where they have to report to the feds. So I just wanted to introduce those 2 names to you. So if you get an email or some information from them, you at least will be familiar with their names. But like I said earlier, you can reach out to myself, Valerie, Corinne Carlson, or Kathy Yoakum, who they are the ones that are working very hard on getting your grants in the system and getting them approved, and working with fiscal and all of that. So we are here to assist, so just let us know how we can.
Judy asked you to repeat those names again. Julie Spohn.
Julie, yes. And Christine.
I'll let you say that.
Zelensky. I think it's Zelensky. Valerie's typing. Maybe she knows how to spell it.
I do not know how to spell it.
Oh.
And I was trying to think about how to spell Julie's last name.
Spohn.
Yeah.
Miriam had a question. Our team meets next week. Any suggestions or materials we can give them to prepare for this work? We will archive this webinar and get it sent out as a link. We will also edit it, and we will edit out the piece that Dr. Schweinhart presented on how the frameworks work together. So that'll be a short, and then we will also take Ruben and Dana's piece and edit that out as a short. So you can show those 2 videos if you have a coalition meeting set as a preview of this work. And then, of course, you'll have the extended webinar that you can share with folks so they can watch it all as at their leisure. How does that sound? I have someone who is not on mute, who's having a conversation about a physician, so you please mute yourself. Okay, good. Sounds, Marion, like that will be helpful for you. I also see that Molly is typing Christine Zelensky.
Yeah, it's Sealski. Yeah, I looked it up. That's how you spell it.
All right, so we are right on time today, and so we'll show you the last slide, which is, of course, our closing and next steps. On behalf of everyone who presented today on the webinar, I would like to thank all of you for your engagement in not only the webinar and this virtual learning community, but also in stepping up as a community and investing in the statewide collective impact model for change. We have a lot of good work ahead of us. We're excited for this opportunity to learn and grow. And most importantly, we're excited because we have the opportunity to create a model that will move our nation forward in addressing the opioid epidemic and looking at it across the continuum of care. As far as next steps, you'll watch for emails from our team, just like you've been doing, and know that we're all here to help you. There's no question that is a wrong question, and we will get all that information out next week. Look for us for the entire webinar, as well as those two short videos that you can help organize your coalitions around. So thank you very much, and everyone have a wonderful fall weekend.